Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sarah, can you do roll call, please?
President Bucher,
Here.
trustee Hopkins. Absent. Trustee Gant,
Here.
trustee Faber,
Here.
trustee Brooks. Here. Trustee Polly
Here.
and trustee Barheit.
Here.
Thank you.
Did we meet open meeting compliance?
Yes, it was posted last week, Tuesday, the 10th.
Great, thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 5, continuation of hearing on application for sex offender residency exemption under code 439-5. Consideration and possible action regarding a request for an appeal from the provisions of the village's sex offender residency restrictions for Joshua Cobalt, 9416 276th Avenue, Salem, Wisconsin, 53168. This is a quasi judicial hearing as set forth in and pursuant to Village Code Section 439-5. The board will continue the hearing, which commenced on June 2nd, and will continue to hear from the applicant and any interested party, followed by deliberation and action. Should I read the closed session right now? No, right? Because we're going to just continue. Okay. All right, great. Okay, so I guess I will start with Mr. Cobalt to see if there was any additional information that you wanted to provide us before we get started on the 11. Yeah. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Joshua Cobalt, 9416 276th Avenue, Salem, Wisconsin, 53168. No new evidence or anything to provide other than any answers to questions you might have.
Does anyone on the board have any additional follow-up questions after last week?
Like I read through the material, quite thoroughly. Thank you. You have one comment with regard to where the park is at, that we're talking about, which is. I've managed the aquatic harvesting program in Camp Lake for many years. And each park I harvested right at the next to on the property of this park. It's not, I've never seen any kids for it. It's like a big piece of land, it's high shape. I asked one of our operators that lives on Center Lake, the piece. Because he runs out of equipment over there all the time. Has he seen many kids there? And he hasn't. You know, there's a kind of the areas that the village owns of the county land that there's category labeled.
Is there playground equipment? There is.
Yes,
Because like recently,
it's when I used to run that way and when I walked through it, there's,
there's like, you ever seen the playground?
no. But there is a beach at the end of that road.
There's a little
True.
bit.
Yeah. But I don't know that people go there. I've never seen people. That do that.
And when I agree, we used to park their equipment there as well.
Yeah.
You'd see somebody there, but it didn't necessarily mean it's children.
I don't know how many kids live in that neighborhood anymore. I mean, I see the bus come by, but it's mostly teenagers.
Well, I just wanted to mention that. Because that's where the viewing area is from where the document, so that we could see that part.
I have no line of sight of any of that area.
No, you,
You can't see through.
I can't see any of it. No, sir.
Okay,
During the last meeting.
turn on your mic.
Did we determine that there was potential in another location that was also within boundary outside of this beach?
I think that the, Sarah, do you know for certain is the, Salvation Army camp. How far that is?
I can go get the map and like.
Yeah, could you? I think that will help.
I know it's 2 streets over. I also can't see anything in there.
While we're waiting, Ramsey, I know that we have to go through the 11 items. Can you kind of give a little direction to that before we get started?
The way your ordinance works is that when one of the provisions of the ordinance is triggered in here, as I understand it, it is being within 1,500 feet of a sensitive area being the park, it can apply for an exemption. To grant the exemption, the board has these factors that it can consider. So the standard, it says during the hearing, the board may review any information it deems pertinent. The board shall consider the public interest in protecting children as well as the interests of the offender seeking the exemption. So you're doing a balancing there between the public interest in protecting the children as well as the interests of the applicant here who is seeking the exemption. In making this determination, the board may consider the circumstances which resulted in the offender status. So that tells me that you can consider the circumstances of the offense, including, and then that's where it goes on to list these 11 factors. So I'm not sure that these factors are exhaustive. I think that they're illustrative of the kinds of factors and things you can take into consideration. So one would be the statutory provisions violated. In other words, is the offense one of a misdemeanor? Is it a felony? How many statutory provisions have been violated? Number 2, the relationship between the offender and victim. Is the victim a complete stranger? Was there some kind of relationship? Is there a familial relationship? You know, what have you? What is the circumstances surrounding that relationship? And how do those circumstances flow one way or another towards granting the exemption? Again, being considering the public interest in protecting children versus the interests of the offender. The other factor is presence or use of force. That should be fairly self-explanatory. Was there any force, weapon or other instrument used in relation to the statutory provision that was charged? Was there a presence of enticement? I think that's the 4th factor. The 5th factor is proximity in time between the offense and the request for exemption. In other words, if this just happened a year ago versus 20 years ago, obviously the passage of time would weigh more in favor of the applicant. The time out of incarceration, again, that's a factor that could go one way or another, depending on if there was incarceration and how long they've been out. Credibility of the offender, the remorse exhibited by the offender. I think that those are fairly self-explanatory. The proximity of the proposed residence to a child safety zone. So it's one thing to look for an exemption because you fall within the 1,500 feet. Well, how close, are you? Are you 50 feet away or are you just 1,495 and you're just, 5 feet within that zone? That might be a situation where the balance tips in favor of the applicant, the offender. What is the support network of the offender? Who else is here? That may be important to you as part of the calculus of the public interest. Is there family support here? Is there friends? Is there a business? Is there a job that may help in evaluating whether they're not going to offend again? And then lastly, counseling and treatment history, both past, current, and ongoing, future, what have you. Those are all relevant considerations. So I think that there were both in the applicant's presentation and from the chief, I believe that there were facts and circumstances, statements made that touch any one of these factors. And as the board goes through the factors tonight, if it is helpful to the board, you can go through them one by one. But you do want to try to address as many of them as possible. Doesn't mean that each one of you needs to answer the question statutory provision violated or number 8, remorse exhibited by the offender. Do you want to make sure that there's deliberation? That when you get to your decision, that we've canvassed as many of these factors as possible, or any others that you feel may be important. Hopefully that provides you a little instruction, and I can help you tease out some of these factors as you begin your deliberation.
Then maybe if it didn't qualify, possibly, I'm sure.
Probably wouldn't be a public park. It's a
No, it isn't.
private, it's a private. Maybe that's why.
It's private, and it does have a fence all the way around it. And,
Yes, maybe it doesn't even know.
I mean, I lived just
Yeah,
on the
no,
road
it's-
for 40 years, and I maybe once, some kids stole one of their golf carts,
Oh,
and they drove it into my little boat landing. It was there in the morning.
okay.
I got up there distant.
We need to stay on task because we have a board meeting at
Yep.
6 tonight. So. Do you have anyone with you, Mr. Cobalt, who would like to speak on your behalf?
No. Mom's just here to be here with me.
Madam President, would you like me to comment on? Of these factors, I believe there's only one that really goes to matters of law. That's the first one, statutory provisions violated.
Mhm.
Would you like me to comment on them?
Yes, please, if you could help us along.
Um, so from understanding, please correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, was a guilty plea of statute 948.07 which is given the description, court's docket of child enticement, sexual contact.
Yes, sir, as I understand
Is
it.
that correct so far?
As I understand it, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And so under the statute 948.07 sub 1, first I'll describe the statutory violation, and then I'll move to describe the felony list. So under 948.07 sub 1, child enticement, that's the name of the statute, child enticement, says whoever with intent to commit any of the following acts causes or attempts to cause any child who has not attained the age of 18 go into any vehicle, building, room, or secluded place is guilty of a Class D felony. So again, child enticement, whoever with intent to commit any of the following causes or attempts, any child, so anyone under 18, any child go into a secluded place. And it's sub 1, having sexual contact or sexual intercourse with the child. That was the offense. Under that statute, it's a Class D. In Wisconsin, we have 2 types of classification of crimes. One is misdemeanors, one is felonies. Felony is crime punishable by imprisonment in a state prison, generally for a term more than 1 year. All other crimes are considered misdemeanors. And I'm reading now from a Wisconsin legislative document. This is Legislative Reference Bureau, Statutory Felonies in Wisconsin by Christopher Webb, Legislative Analysis, it's April 2020. It has a chart that then goes on to describe the felony classes. Felony Class A is for light, along with B, well, actually B is 60 years. Down at the other end of the spectrum is felony Class I, like Igloo, that is 3.5 years with a $10,000 fine. So this is a felony D, which about 9 classifications, so this is about the 4th one down. It's a maximum fine of $100,000, maximum term of imprisonment 25 years. So that was the felony. The sentence imposed by the court, it looks like it was probation. Sentence imposed of 3 years. Is that correct, sir? It was 3 years and then probation?
3 years of probation.
3 years of probation. So as I understand, you did not serve time in jail.
No, sir. 6 months house arrest.
Okay. And I think some of the other components of the sentence you may have heard about or reviewed already in the docket, you know, everything from complying with sex offender treatments, AODA, counseling, psychological counseling, financial obligation, and so forth. That's in the criminal docket, which is the page you have that has a bunch of lines running through it. Is describing the nature of the offense and the probation and the sentencing that was imposed. So that's the nature of the first factor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we need to act on that or to have discussion on that?
Well, I think to help you and to move things along, given that it doesn't appear that we have many others in the room, I think you want to get to a point where you close the hearing, and then you can proceed to your deliberation on the factors.
Okay,
As I pointed out before, I mean, if it helps you, you can go through them one by one. Not all, it doesn't necessarily have to be that every one of you speaks to it, but it might allow one or more of you to speak to each factor, and then you'll
Okay.
get to your eventual determination.
all right.
So I don't think you've actually closed the hearing. You can ask for any further.
From the last meeting.
Correct. You
Okay,
can ask the applicant for any further questions, make sure he's had an opportunity to respond to anything further he's heard. You can take any final comment from the public, then you can close the meeting.
okay. Mr. Cobalt, do you have any further comments?
If you have no further questions, then no further comments from me. And
Okay. Bill, did you have any?
Came in late and I apologize for that. Last meeting we had, I had asked you, Ben, what the requirements are in the state of Wisconsin for being on the sex offender registry. Have you looked those up?
I didn't comprehend that was homework. I'm sorry.
It's actually part of your package here as well. When I read through it, it said you're to become familiar with the requirements of the sex offender registry,
Yes, sir.
and you haven't done that.
I've read through a lot of material lately,
That's
so
what I'm asking you.
I can't recite them back to back. No, sir.
Okay, do you know the locations that you have to stay away from?
Uh,
1,500 feet.
Yes, sir.
Which ones are they?
Parks, aquatic facilities, schools, churches, anywhere where children congregate, playgrounds, beaches, public access areas, hiking paths, golf courses,
Daycares.
daycares, child congregation areas, yeah, childcare center.
And how far are you from the closest point of the Salvation Army camp?
I hadn't measured that. It's,
Actually, 300 feet.
no, sir.
Yes.
I
How
can't, even-
how about the closest to the park that's over in that subdivision?
that park, I'm unaware of its exact location. There's no way I'm closer to Salvation Army than that park, sir.
I disagree with you, and you look about the map, because Salvation Army camp, you'll see it's due north of
Yes, sir. I understand where the Salvation Army camp is. There's 2 streets and at least 4 houses, rows of houses in between me and them.
I don't have any questions.
I can't see it from my house.
It's about 440 square feet, or 440 feet, I think. Due north.
You said that you are in contact with your ex-wife.
Still
Regularly?
wife, working together to reconcile.
You're still together? So
Yes, ma'am.
Still married? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And in contact with your own children frequently?
Yes, ma'am.
And they come to your house?
They're not at the moment. My probation officer is working with me on that. I can call them and talk to them, and my wife can come over and
Fancy.
visit. Friends in the neighborhood come over and visit. But no contact with my children other than telephonic right now.
And how long will that be? For 3 years or until your probation officer?
Until my probation officer gives me authorization. They wanted me to be in treatment and show progress for a little bit. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll get to see him.
Do you attend church?
I have a church that I used to go to, but I don't right now with house arrest, and I'm not allowed to see the kids. So the kids go there, and I didn't want to try and cross any wires. So
Okay, thank you.
Are you on an ankle monitor?
right now I am, sir. Once my house arrest is complete, then I won't need an ankle monitor anymore.
And that's when?
September 17th, sir.
And how long is your registry, of the state sex offender registry last?
15 years as required by law. There's only 2 options, 15 years or life, and I got the 15 years.
Actual registration,
The date I registered, sir?
the date that it expires.
No, it's 15 years away. I've been using my brain power on other things at the moment.
2043, which by my count is 18 years. And that's on the registry.
That would be because registry time starts once my initial obligation is complete, now that you say that. So yeah, once my probation is done, then my 15 years would start.
You bought the house when it was before the conclusion of the court case, was it?
My case, yes, sir. I purchased the house prior to conviction. There weren't any restrictions. I bought it because I just wanted to be close to my family. Try and work through things with my wife and kids.
If I may, I took those 11. What do you call them? The 11 different things that are on here, and I kind of gave them either a positive or a negative. Just kind of pros and cons look at it. And I could see 4 being a con because there might be enticement. Because he, if I'm understanding correctly, he did entice over the phone. Or over the phone or on this website. 6, time out of incarceration has been limited, but they gave him a small time to serve anyway for his.
Apologize. That was from me. I think maybe we can deliberation.
Is that right?
That's it.
Okay, okay, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So if there's no other questions from the board, then I will go ahead, and there's none from you, Mr. Cullen.
No, ma'am.
Then I will go ahead and close the hearing.
You have one citizen in the room to just make a final call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone else here? Do I have to ask 3 times?
Sure, why?
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone here to speak against? I will now close this hearing. Thank you. Yep. All right. So now we can go through the 11 items. So number 1, statutory provisions violated. I think Ramsey went through that. Does anyone have any questions? And do we have to talk about, is everyone in agreement, or how do we do this, Ramsey? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and so, that's why we have deliberations amongst the body. There's gonna be things that one member understands better than another. There's gonna be things that one member remembers better than another. And the point is for someone to start talking, try to articulate what you've heard relative to that factor. And see if others want to add or subtract to that, or say, I agree, through the factors. So on the first one, just to get you started, statutory provision violated. We walk through the statutory language. We walk through where the felony fell. Amongst the 9 felony levels, it was the 4th or 5th one down. And then you heard testimony from him in terms of what the sentencing was. And so I suppose that's where you could start. You could just ask the body, how does the body feel about what they heard regarding the statutory provision at issue? And whether or not that favors or doesn't favor the application, or maybe it's just neutral.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we have number 1 covered. We'll go on to number 2, relationship of offender and victim.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, we'll back up. So
Did I miss that?
does anyone on the board does anyone on the board have any comments?
Sorry. Does anyone on the board have any comment on this?
I do. I think the fact that the state gave him a limited sentence, no jail time, house arrest, and 3 years of probation is indicative of the crime. So I think that's favorable toward him, toward us approving or considering this. I think it's better. I don't know how to word this. It's favorable.
Because if I look at the statutory provisions violated as a check mark as to how that went, that I guess I look at it, yes, statutory provision was violated. And so that's available to understand how I'm looking at it, but I'm also. So.
Mhm.
And maybe I'm confused. And limited sentence, so that makes me.
I think it's like, you look at you use the word stationary on statutory.
Yeah.
I think that's what.
So reading through the 2 reports. Cast doctors. Just one reading. Parallel. First one. Deputy Collins. It was extremely inclusive of all the data. According to what she put in there is not a highest element that he will re-offend. But a lot of that was hinged on his treatment for PTSD. Okay. Which you didn't see any sort of counseling after you were caught in this little sting operation. Nothing took place prior to that. And it seems like all of your treatment plan has been afterwards. You also shared with us a certificate of domiciliary 1, 2, 3. Domiciliary 1, 2, 3 does nothing in the way of counseling the charges that he was brought up, but rather it's for homelessness, bringing up ways in which you can become more dependent on society. And so forth. Yeah, respond. It will be correct.
Domiciliary At this point, we're in deliberation, so.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with Commissary 123 being a 20-year Navy vet as well. I had an older son that actually lived in Commissary 123. And talking with him and what programs he went through, none of which really spelled out any sort of treatment in the way of what he was charged with and found guilty of. So I'm not sure what that was meant to do. Treat loss, yes. The other gentleman who treated you or saw you was a Ingber. And again, in both cases, Joseph Ingber, in both cases, they said that the likelihood of reoffending are low. As a matter of fact, putting you potentially on a low risk level. What bothered me about all of this is the fact that even today, as part of the sentence he received, he was supposed to review all the criteria around being on sex offender registry, which by his own admission, well, last time we met and today, he is yet. That bothers me, especially being so close to the village park and then the Salvation Army camp. So.
Oh.
Am I off?
No, and so it seems like your comments are mostly addressing factor 11, counseling and treatment history, along with matters of factor 7, credibility of offender. Maybe another factor. Is that where you were trying to go with all those?
I missed the beginning of this, Ramsey, and I apologize for that. So I'm not sure where this is coming from up on the board.
It's, Brian, if you could make it just a bit larger, it's our ordinance.
Oh,
Right now we're on statutory provisions violated. So, correct.
Well, and that's fine, and that's why I pointed that out, simply because you don't have to repeat all of that once we hit some of those factors. The facts you hear, whether they're tipping in favor or against the exemption, may fall under more than one factor. So I'm just interjecting here just to help you along, make
Correct.
sure your minds are working in terms of how you've heard things and how you're going to apply them to these factors. Again, these are factors that may not be exhaustive factors. You're not just limited to these 11.
Mhm.
The opening point of the evaluation is in the last sentence of that long paragraph. The board shall consider the public interest of protecting children as well as the interest of the offender. And then it goes on to say you may consider the circumstances which resulted in the offense, including, and that's where it lists all these factors.
Right. So, statutory provisions violated. Obviously, he lives within the 1,500 feet of 2 designated areas. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if children live there now or not. They could move in tomorrow. So history on that doesn't mean anything to me. It is the fact that there is playground equipment there and that they are designated as park areas.
prior to getting here, Bill, I mentioned that the park area, we park our harvesting equipment there and we have no recollection of any kids playing there, being there, and that's over 20 some years. Yeah, but we did go through this whole task, be that verifying all the parks village. Right. And this still, I would say. I do, in my mind, it carries weight that he bought the premises before any convictions or rules that would apply at that time. I also, when I read the information with regard to people that are professionals making comments. I do not recall reading anything where anybody said that he was in a position that was worse. He was at the other end of the spectrum. There was an 11 rating that I read in one, and they felt that it would eventually he'd qualify for one. There was something else that sticks out in my mind. It was an age. They said at 40 things change, and I think he is now 40. But this, the one that I read from Deborah Collins, she's a board certified American board of forensic psychologists, I guess. And there's a number of things here, 2 through 7. Virtually every one of Mr. Colbert does not meet that criteria. The next one is again, he doesn't meet it, and these criterias. I don't know, maybe for these I won't over.
Okay. Ron, do you believe that statutory provisions were violated? I guess in Bill too.
My mom hadn't been to see what property.
Bought the property after he was caught. And yes, he didn't take a plea deal yet, but he'd already been charged and then bought the property. And then was found, or took the plea deal, found guilty on one count with the 2 other counts being read in. So I say yes.
Okay. Ron?
Along with what Bill's saying, you know, he bought the property prior. Well, not prior, but while this whole process was going on, should he have looked at that prior to that? So.
Okay.
I just have one comment there. Buying property is based on property that's available. You know, it's did he intentionally buy property to be close to a park? I don't think so. I think he bought it because that house was there and it was affordable at that time. So I don't know what, that's where
And it is a tough market now to get a house.
and it was then at a
Yes, it
price when you
was.
already own a home. And your family lives there and you want to be close to them, and this fit that criteria.
Okay, Ramsey, can we move on to number 2? Relationship of offender and victim.
To what facts did you hear that go to that relationship, and how does that fact relate to this application for exemption? I think what the factor is getting at is it could be considered more severe or aggravated, have you, if it's a familial relationship, father-daughter, father-son, versus complete strangers, although other people may view it as being equally problematic. You're the decision makers. What is the relationship you heard, and how does that influence how you think about whether you want to grant an exemption?
Okay. Sure, I will start. I understand that there was no actual victim. However, the intent was for there to be a victim, and had there actually been a real child on the other end of this, there would have been. I think that your intent was that. And you said that you found out, I believe day 1, that it was a 12-year-old is, day 1 or 2, but very early on that it was a 12-year-old. And you continued to have very graphic, because that is in here, communications. So.
Oh, I agree. You actually thought it was an adolescent, you went with the intent to meet up with the adolescents as determined by what they found in your car.
Ron?
It's the same thing. There was an intent there, okay, for a minor per se. And after the first or second day that this all happened, it was still pursued, so. That's my call on that.
Dennis?
Yeah, the original, as I recall, the original contact was with someone 19, 20 years old and it was a sting operation is what it really was. And most certainly he did, and he admits that he pursued a younger possible victim. But under other circumstances, we'll talk about a little later with his background, the way what he'd gone through in life and where he was at that time. It showed very poor judgment. Very, and he admits it. And he's not shied away from any of that. He's been up front and even in the documents that you read, he hasn't, tried to manipulate, my opinion.
Pete?
Just kind of quickly reverberating, Bill and Ron, but basically the intent.
Angela?
I agree with Dennis. I think because it was Sting. And they had conversations that probably got him more involved than he would have otherwise. As an adult can show maturity more than a 12-year-old can, even if they are pretending to be 12 years old. And I feel that if it was in person, I'm struggling. I feel like he wouldn't have done it in person.
Really?
I kind of go along with Angela with that. I mean, it's hard to say what would happen if it was in person instead of being a sting. I think he shows remorse, but yeah, I think, I kind of go along with Mr. Faber there.
Okay, we'll go with number 3, presence or use of force. Mr. Trustee Gant, did you?
I don't think there's any force used on this in any way, we just to the fact of a phone conversation or whatever. It's a conversation. There was no enforcement or forcing anything anywhere, so.
Okay. Bill?
No, there was no force.
I am also a no.
No force.
No force.
No.
No force.
Okay. We will go with number 4, presence of enticement. Mr. Barheit?
What did? I'm trying to figure out how they're trying to mean this.
Was the
Was
No,
there
I
any
looked that up
presence
now,
of-
like there currently is. I think it is there where he lives, or is it related to? the
I guess,
case?
Ramsey, could you explain that? Did he? What does presence of enticement mean?
Find under your code, but enticement, I believe, goes to, the notion of child enticement. This, statute he was charged under was 948.07, child enticement. Again, the statutory language is that whoever with intent to commit any of the following acts, here the acts being sexual contact or sexual intercourse, with the child, by trying to get them into any vehicle, building, room, or other secluded place. So I think whether your code meant to or not, by using the phrase presence of enticement, it's simply asking you, what facts did you hear that goes to whether or not there was, child enticement.
Okay.
Do we know who sent the first pictures? To me, that would be enticing. Or who was the first to initiate? See it in there. And to me, that
Do that, let me try to get you thinking.
or is that the wrong type of thing?
Well, no, so that's part of the analysis. The other part though is perhaps a little easier for you. I mean, the statute that he was charged under is 948.07. 948.07, child enticement. One of your factors is asking, is there presence of enticement? So in some ways that factor is met. Some of you may feel it's met. Others may feel based on facts and information you heard, it's met in a great deal sort of way. Others may feel it's de minimis. Others may see other facts, but that is certainly a fact. He was charged and pled guilty under 948.07, child enticement. One of your factors is, was there child enticement?
So it's automatically then an enticement.
Automatically, but I'm just trying to get, the brain juice is going, right? And
Yep.
so that's one of the facts that you can consider, and then take that fact, and then how does it weigh for you? Weigh in favor of granting the exemption or not in granting the exemption?
We'll come back to you, Billy. Angela?
Yes, there's presence of enticement in the.
Yes, I agree as well. Presence of enticement.
Donna?
Well, certainly I agree because that's the charge, but you don't know, it evolved downward to that.
Mhm. Um,
And by whose comments in the conversations.
sure. I will also agree, and Mr. Cobalt was actually the first one to ask to meet in person. And suggested a movie. Even suggested what kind of movie, and it went from there. So I would say that constitutes enticement. Bill
Yes.
and Ron,
Yeah, yes, to an extent.
okay. Number 5, proximity and time between the offense and the request for exemption. Bill, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, so this is where this one piece, I think, was more, it weighed more in my decision. Simply because I have a hard time believing it was coincidental that he's charged, he buys property, he's convicted, and now he needs an exemption. Just too close to the offense itself. And I think proximity and time between the offense and the request for exemption. Yes, it's too short a period.
Okay. Oh, can we back up?
agree. I agree.
Billy, I'm sorry, I'm gonna back up, and Billy, go back to the presence of enticement. I forgot that we were going back to.
Yeah, I guess that there has to be some form of enticement in it to do this, so
Okay,
how you could do anyways.
all right, so we will continue then on proximity of time between offense and request for exemption. Angela?
I agree with you. It is coincidental, but I also think that he probably needed a place to stay and wanted to stay close to home, so I think it's also coincidental on that. I
Okay,
can't imagine that. I'm not gonna project my own thoughts about it, but I Agree with you.
Okay, Pete,
Proximity between the offense and request for exemption is short.
Dennis,
That's true, but I feel that, the offense that he had started on not by hanging around the park or something like that. But yes, the time limit is.
Mhm. Ron,
The time limit is pretty short on it, but. Like Dennis saying that just, he wanted to live back to his family in the whole shot, so. What are you gonna do? Okay,
all right, Billy,
I think that, I didn't think, like you said, I'd be trying to get close to the family, shortage of housing in the area, so.
so I'm gonna go back to Mr. Cobalt's admission that he applied as soon as he was aware. I don't know what the what the state does as far as making people aware. But it was a short time period. Of less than 4 months, I believe. Okay, so we will go number 6, time out of incarceration. Do we have to, Ramsey, if he was not technically incarcerated, do we need to go through this one?
No, you do not.
Okay. Number 7, credibility of offender. I'm going to start with Dennis.
Is that one again?
Credibility of offender.
Credibility of offenders. That would be the people that were hurt.
Credibility of the offender.
Oh,
Mr. Cobalt.
I felt,
Billy, please turn that off. Go ahead.
I felt that, he was credible. And again, reading all the endorsements and favorable things about him throughout most of his life. I believe him.
Okay. Pete,
I do believe.
okay, Angela,
I believe it's credible.
Billy,
Excited to,
Ron,
yes, without a doubt. I mean, with the service time and all that. And I mean, as far as with the reports we got from everybody, so I'd be very credible.
Bill.
Yes.
All right. I also do. However, I do want to mention that I was a bit surprised when the Kenosha County Sheriff's representative that was here was the one to tell us that he showed up with supplies. So that was left out. But other than that, I do believe that he was credible. All right, number 8, remorse exhibited by the offender. Ron?
He's very remorseful as far as what he did or whatever, and I mean, even for a man to stand up there like he has been for the last 2 sessions here. I mean, he admits he did wrong, so let just.
Bill?
No. The reason I say no is because his first time before us, again, he went on the premise there was no victim. And I argue the fact that it's not a matter of whether there was a victim or not. He got caught before he was able to get to a victim. To me, that's not remorseful.
Okay. I also feel the same way. I do believe that he did exhibit remorse. I think that most people would once you are caught. But to say that there was not an actual victim and that should make it make me feel better about it. I do not feel better about that. Dennis?
The things that you and Bill have said, I can appreciate that, they hold weight, but I do feel that he's very remorseful, and I'm not going to hold it against him on that one statement.
Pete?
Also conflicted. Depending on how you review and look at it, and the different subjects that we just discussed in this line item. From the intent, I would go with that. Yeah, he is remorseful, but he also stated that he's remorseful.
Okay, Angela?
I think he is remorseful and he's trying to figure it out with his family. And I think he's learned his terrible mistake.
Billy?
I think he's very remorseful. I mean, to stand up here takes a lot of integrity to admit to it, stand up here. I know I would have great problems trying to do that.
Right. Okay, number 9, proximity of proposed residence to a child safety zone. Pete?
Well, I'm looking on the GIS here. I didn't do the click and measure, but you had into the Salvation Army. It was what, 400 feet?
391 feet.
391. So we see this question of their proximity of proposed residence to a child safety zone. That it's way short of our ordinance. Along with the park, and it's anywhere children congregate, so it's yes.
Close. Angela?
Yes, too close.
Billy?
As for the Salvation Army camp, I believe there's a 6-foot fence all the way around that.
All you're answering is proximity of proposed residence to child safety zone.
Yes, in that case, he is close.
Dennis?
Yes, yes, by the numbers, yes.
Yes. And I also am yes to 3 locations. Bill?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Okay. Number 10, support network of offender. I'm going to start this. I appreciate all of your letters that you gave, and I did read them all. Some of them I read a few times, and there are a great number of them. But I guess my question is, or my observation is, there's a lot here, but I'm baffled why no one's here to support you in person. So that is, I question how much support you really have if people are not here with you. Bill? No.
Oh, the hearing is closed now, sir.
The issue I have with the support network of the offender, at this point, it's all volunteer on his part to participate. And that bothers me. Bothers me in a sense that he hasn't taken the time to do the due diligence, I would think, to look up all of this stuff, figure out what he has to have when he comes before us. Is it out there for him? Yes. Yes, by means. Is he going to participate in it? I don't know. I don't know.
Ron?
Just looking at the support of people that, you know, with our letters that we received in the whole shot. But as you're saying, it's Monday, we'd like to see more people here to support him. I don't, anyway, yeah.
Dennis?
The fact that there are more people who are supporting him, I'm not that bothered with it because a lot of them were in the service with him. And they don't live in Wisconsin. They're not close to us. As far as getting support through, I notice here he goes to Waukesha every Friday at 4 o'clock. There's meetings that he attends and other things that he's done. And I think, I suspect this is voluntary, but he's with the VA group and they meet weekly. So I say yes, he's gonna show.
Pete?
So I just take this as support network of offender. He's under doctor's care. He does have support network in those regards, but as far as private support network, that maybe there's not as many people, but so there's that.
Angela?
Based on what he said with he and his wife trying to work through this with his family and his mom being here. I think that he said he told all of his neighbors. I don't know if that's support or not, but I do think between him and his wife, based on what he said, he has support.
Billy?
I think so. I think he should have enough support there. I mean, he's got the VA, wife, his mother.
Okay. Number 11, counseling and treatment history. Bill?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes. I mean, what we've seen here from the VA and everything, how the thing has been through.
Yes, I also agree. Billy?
Yes. Oh. What'd you say?
Angela?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. So we have now gone through all 11. Ramsey?
So I think you now need to take those deliberations and where the board is on the various factors. To try to reach a final decision. You know, as I heard you on the various factors, there were some that weighed in favor of granting the exemption and some that weighed against it. Most everyone thought that he was credible, although there were also some comments that went to not being credible. The majority of you seemed to believe that he was remorseful. I think only a few, I would say the minority, believed he was not. The majority seemed to believe that there is proximity to child safety zones. That was one of the few that was unanimous. So this is really the art of I guess consensus building, final deliberations in terms of where everyone feels. If, Madam President, you feel based on deliberations, you want to entertain a motion, you can go for the motion. If you feel you need to tease this out further, you can.
Well, I'd like to give each trustee the chance to, if there's anything else you want to add on this before I ask for a motion. So Billy,
You said your ankle monitor was for how long?
he can't answer, so he cannot.
Yeah, but
Did anybody catch it? Months and it ends
Yeah.
September
September.
17th or something.
yeah, I thought that
Mhm.
was. That's it.
Angela?
I think he's been living there for some time now, and I had asked the officer if there were any complaining incidents, and there were none. I think that him being close to his family is important so that they can continue to support him. I think that the Salvation Army being monitored and fenced and lots of adults there with younger people, and I don't recall what the youngest age is that attends there, but I feel like that may not be as big of a factor as the park located down the road. But I have visited there many times because I don't live far from there and I don't see a lot of children there. So I feel like I would be in favor of approving this exemption.
Pete?
I don't have any further questions.
Dennis?
I don't either. We didn't want to go into closed session to discuss any medical or others sensitive.
No,
don't think-
because he had answered the last time that he was okay with discussing that in a public setting, and we did do that.
I don't have.
Um, Okay, Bill?
No other questions.
No other question.
Okay, and I don't, it's not only questions, it's statements or feelings or anything you want to say. I don't either. So at this time, I guess we will, if we're done deliberating at where we're at, then I will ask for a motion to either grant or a motion to deny.
I'll make a motion to deny the exemption based on the criteria that we've talked about here tonight.
I will second that.
Okay. Angela,
No.
Billy,
No.
Dennis,
No,
Ron,
No.
Bill,
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Pete,
Yes.
so that motion failed.
I'll make a motion to allow the exemption under the 439-5.
I'll second that motion.
Angela,
Yes.
Billy,
Yes.
Pete,
No.
Dennis,
Yes,
Bill,
No.
Ron,
Yes.
and I'm a no. You've been granted your exemption, sir. 4-3. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? We're adjourned. Turn your microphones off, please.